Let's talk about protein. Welcome to Strong for Life Live. This is Coach Josh Wood down here in Hobart, Tasmania. And if you're tuning in for the first time, this is the Strong for Life Live podcast, where we're talking mostly to busy parents and professionals who are time poor and just need a quick bit of advice, some tips, some things to get going, some actionable tasks you can do to become strong for life. And if you're new here, or if you're not, it'd be great if you could like and review whatever platform you listen to. We're on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Those likes, reviews, and questions that you can leave really help. They help guide this podcast, and they let me know that someone's listening. So I appreciate that. Now let me think here. No big announcements. There's a couple of projects in the works. We're doing intake for the next 90-day program now. There's a few options there. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can become leaner, stronger, more capable for life in 12 weeks, hit me up. Send me a question. And then there is a new program on the way, but I can't tell you how long it's going to take for me to develop that. So something to keep in mind. So let's get into it. You know, my goal is always to keep these things under 20 minutes. 15 is a nice, good round number there. So what we're going to do today is look at, well, first of all, what is protein? Every once in a while I get into a conversation with someone and they're telling me about, you know, their protein intake, and they'll say things like, oh, I get all my protein from nuts and mushrooms. No, you don't. And some people go, you know, I read this thing on the internet that says I only need 24 grams of protein a day. No, you don't. And, you know, often it's misunderstood. People often confuse protein and iron. I've run into that one a lot. So I just want to give you some actionable things about how to get your protein right, where to get it from, and when to eat it. Protein timing is one of the more nuanced subjects, and there's just, you know, there's always so much information out there. There's so much information about what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, when you should be doing it. So much information, and it's overwhelming. And I want to try and make sure that I can condense that for you and just give you the bare bones, give you the basics. So this is not going to be a biochemistry lecture. This is going to be the basics. So let's look at what protein is. So you've got three main macronutrients: carbs, fats, protein. Carbs are a great energy source. Fat, great energy source. You need fats for a few biological processes in your body. Your cell membranes are made of fats. You need them, like certain fats like cholesterol, for optimal sex hormone production. There's a few things going on there. Carbs, you have limited use for them in your body. They're very useful for fuel. They're great for performance. But it's pretty hard to undereat carbs for an average sedentary individual. But that's a whole other conversation. But protein. Protein can be used as fuel. Our macronutrients are the basic fundamental building blocks of foods that provide energy. And although technically protein does provide energy, your body's less likely to use it as energy. And if we have something that's less likely to be used as energy, it's also less likely to be stored. Oh, there's something crazy going on outside the door. Someone's car alarm was going off. All right. So there are things like macronutrients like protein that are less likely to be stored because they're less likely to be used for energy because they're building blocks. It's like if you're going to build a house and you have the option between big hardwood aged timber logs and fresh cut pine, well, you can use pine very easily to build a roaring fire and keep your house warm. But you're going to use the more stable and sturdy building blocks to create the structure. Your body's going to use protein for a lot of its structures. Hair, skin, and nails, protein. You know, everything that makes your body solid is mostly proteins. Your bones. People get caught up in the, oh, I need calcium for my bones. And you do. You do need minerals for your bones. But what actually makes your bones rigid and hard and upright is collagen, which is a protein. And that's the same protein that holds your skin onto the structure underneath and stops it from sagging. Your collagen breaks down over time in your skin, and that's where you get droopy skin. So proteins give us structure. And then if we look at the muscular system, Muscles are the things that allow us to interact with the world. If you didn't have muscles, you'd be a jellyfish. Well, if you didn't have bones, you'd be a jellyfish. If you didn't have muscles, you'd be unable to move or interact. Muscles are what move your eyes. Muscles are what move your mouth. Muscles are what allow you to interact with the entire world around you. You need muscle. And every single day, even if you're not an athlete, even if you're not super active, you are breaking down muscle tissue, and your body has to replenish that and repair it. So you need protein. And if you're active, you need more of it. And if you want more muscle mass, you need more of it. And so a neat little stat I heard many years ago was if you take out your muscular system, because every once in a while I'll talk to someone and they'll be like, well, it's just muscles. I don't want to focus on that. It's like, well, if you take away your muscular system, the muscles in your body, you'd only weigh about 10% of what you weigh now. Your muscles are most of you, not just the skeletal muscles that let you move your body around, but also your organs, the tube organs that allow you to digest, your intestines, your stomach. That's all muscle. Your blood vessels, muscle, smooth muscle. Your heart, muscle. So even if you're trying to get out of eating more protein because you think you're not very active, the rest of your body needs it for stuff. And if you don't have enough of these building blocks, your body will compromise. You'll become weaker. You become less energetic. You'll become slower. You'll probably be achier because you're not healing every day like you're supposed to. So protein is essential. And then you need energy sources too, but we'll talk about that another time. So protein is your structure. Protein is your ability to move and interact. If you enjoy playing music, if you enjoy dancing, if you enjoy walking and climbing, that's all because you have muscles. No muscles, less healthy muscles, the less able you are to do those things. Let's talk about how much you need. I'll talk about sources as well. Protein sources is really important because a lot of people are very confused about what constitutes a protein source. But let's talk about how much you need. So there's a few ways of looking at this. We can look at numbers. If you're numbers oriented, it's the most accurate thing. If you are averse to numbers and calculating and quantifying, you will be less accurate in your estimation of how much you're taking in and how much you need. But let's look at the basics. In general, you need, at a minimum, about 1.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. Ideally, 1.6 grams seems to cover all your bases. Now, 1.6 grams per kilo body weight, if you weigh, say you weigh 100 kilos, that's 160 grams of protein. It's a decent amount. It's not undoable, or it's not unmanageable, sorry. And understanding what that looks like is important. So if we're looking at 160 grams of protein, which is more than most of you need. Those of you that are listening, you probably need not that much. And I'm talking 100 kilos, not overweight, because you don't necessarily want to fuel yourself for the weight you're at. You may want to fuel yourself for the weight you want to be at. So 160 grams of protein. Let's say if you eat 3 meals a day, and then we keep it real simple, that's probably 3 chicken breasts. 3 chicken breasts will give you somewhere between 40 and 60 grams of protein, depending on the size. And this is where we get a little bit tricky. So if we say take in 40 grams of protein per meal times 3, that's 120. And then you have 2 snacks during the day with 20 grams of protein. No, sorry. Two snacks at 20 grams of protein. That'd be like, a cup and a half of low-fat Greek yogurt, cup and a half of cottage cheese, that kind of thing. So you can do it with whole foods. Now, most of you, I'm 77-ish kilos these days. And so I aim for about 150 grams of protein. So just under 1 gram per pound or 2 grams per kilo. And that's essentially 3 meals with a heavy protein portion and a couple snacks. I start my day off with a protein shake just because it helps me get those numbers in, because as we just talked about, it's essential. Now, what does that look like for the average person who doesn't want to do math? Well, what I like to do is called proportional eating for those folks. And that means, now if you're catching this on audio, you can't see what I'm doing. But look at your hand. Look at your palm. Look at the size, thickness, height, width of your palm. That is about 1 protein portion for you. 1 serve of protein should be about that size. An average person will want to have between 3 and 5 of those a day. So it's a normal person, not particularly active. 3 to 5 is good. If you just start off aiming for 3 palm-sized portions of protein, you're probably doing better than you were before. And then we'd want to work up to 4. So the amounts are pretty well known, what we need to get. Numbers, 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilo is a good place to start. Palm sizes, aim for 3 or 4 and try to work your way up to 5 if you're more active. Now, what about sources of protein? What do we mean when we say a protein source? So we have a couple issues. We have foods that have complete proteins, which means they have all the essential amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. We have all the essential amino acids, and we can use all those readily. They're more bioavailable. They are in a source that our body can break down and use quickly and easily. There are foods that are incomplete proteins, meaning they don't have all the essential amino acids, they don't have all the essential building blocks, so we have to have more of them, and we have to take in amino acids or protein from other sources too, so your body can then pick the pieces it needs to build the complete proteins needed to build your body. So complete proteins that are bioavailable would be basically all your animal sources, all your meats. Dairy is great too, except if you are trying to watch calories, full fat dairy can be problematic. Now for health purposes, full fat dairy is great. If we're just looking at protein consumption and body composition, low fat dairy options give you much more protein with lower amount of calories. Again, conversation for another day. I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet. So, your low-fat Greek yogurt and cottage cheese are great protein sources, and they're easy to make delicious. So, some of us may just want to eat steak every day. Some of us may want to eat chicken or fish. That's fine. But if you want a bit more variety, I love dairy sources. I'm probably made of 50% yogurt by now. Low-fat Greek yogurt's awesome. There's high protein variations too, and you usually get 15 to 20 grams of protein per cup of yogurt. And I like to take that or cottage cheese, which is higher in protein, usually 30 grams per cup. And I just chop up some fruit or thaw some frozen berries and put a little drizzle of honey on that. Awesome. Maybe a sprinkle of cinnamon. Great. It's a good breakfast. It's a good snack. It's enjoyable. Seasonal fruits make it more fun. It's a great option. As we have foods that have less and less complete proteins and more other macronutrients, carbs or fats, we find that our diet becomes too calorie heavy. We're taking in too much energy, which is what we store as fat, and we get less and less protein. So if you're a vegetarian or, God forbid, vegan, it's very hard without supplementation to hit your protein needs without way overdoing the amount of food you eat. So for example, I mentioned earlier, people who say, I get my protein from mushrooms and nuts. No, you really can't. So if you were to use, say, almonds, a very common nut that people snack on. If you want to get 30 grams of protein, so a cup of cottage cheese, couple 100 calories. If you're looking at almonds, if you want 30 grams of protein, you're going to need somewhere around 3 cups, and it's going to be around 33. It's going to be almonds are about 850 calories per cup. And that cup will also give you close to 30 grams of protein, if I'm remembering my numbers correct. So 30 grams of protein for 850 calories. For most people, you're not going to need more than 2,000 calories a day. That's less than half a cups of almonds. And that's only going to get you maybe 60 grams of protein. And they're incomplete proteins. So you're not going to be able to utilize them well. And so really you're getting probably 50% of the protein you need. Or 50% of the protein you're consuming from those almonds. And if you're eating that many almonds, you're probably going to shit yourself. They're very high in fat. They're not super easily digestible. Nuts are not a good source of protein. There's a lot of good nutrients in nuts. There's a lot of minerals that are good for us, but they're not easy to digest, and the protein is poor, and they're very calorically dense. Very easy to overeat because they're full of fats, and fats are very high in calories per gram compared to carbs and protein. So that one doesn't work. If you're into the lentils and the pulses and the legumes, your beans, your chickpeas, they're good for you. They're good for you. They can be very delicious. I really like chickpeas. I like lentils and lentil curries and chickpea curries. Uh, but you're going to need, 2-ish cups, 2 to 3 cups, depending on whether it's a lentil or a chickpea or a bean or whatever, to get that 30 grams of protein. And again, that's going to be 3 or 4 times the amount of calories you'd get from a cup of cottage cheese or a palm-sized portion of chicken or fish. So it's so easy to overeat and get next to nothing from it. And that's where we talk about nutrient density. How many nutrients or how much total nutrient value does a thing have compared to the amount you have to eat? And this is where fish, chicken, lean beef, lean dairy wins. Because you could get 150 grams of protein off of chicken or fish and only consume 600 to 800 calories, maybe 1,000, depending how lean it is. That's incredibly nutrient dense, incredibly protein dense. But you won't get anywhere near that with your vegetable sources. So vegetable sources, plant sources of proteins, are additional fun. They're supplementary. They're not going to get you where you need to be, but they can be filling. They can have other health benefits, but don't rely on them for primary protein sources. And if you're a vegetarian or vegan, you're going to have to look at supplementation to hit that optimal range without over consuming. So the source of protein makes a big difference. So we've looked at how important the protein is, making sure that you understand why you need it and how much you need, and then where to get it from. So you only need 3 palm-sized portions of chicken, fish, beef, lean pork, lean dairy a day for most people to get to a good amount of protein consumption. But from vegetable sources or plant sources, you need way, way more, and it puts you over calories, and then you start to gain undesirable weight usually. Let's talk about the last little piece of this, is timing. The average person doesn't need to worry about timing. If you are a athlete, someone looking at trying to optimize your body composition, meaning getting as lean as you can and maintaining as much muscle mass as you can, nutrient timing does matter. Ultimately, the most important thing is just getting enough protein across the day. If you're into intermittent fasting type stuff, just get your protein in. If you want to eat one meal, if you got a 4-hour feeding window, no worries. Get it in. You're going to do pretty good. If you really want to optimize your body composition and look as lean and jacked as possible, timing does matter. In general, if you get at least 20 grams of high quality bioavailable protein, whether it's from supplements like whey or whether it's meat or dairy, you're going to trigger muscle protein synthesis. It has to do with hitting a threshold of one of the amino acids called leucine. Not going to get into it. But if you get around 20 grams per serve, you trigger muscle protein synthesis, the building of new muscle tissue. And the more times a day that you do that, the greater amount of that protein is going to go towards building new muscle. If you don't hit that threshold per feed, you don't trigger muscle protein synthesis as much, and you're less likely to build muscle. So hitting that threshold of at least 20 grams as many times a day as you can. I think most studies show that anything over 7 feeds a day doesn't seem to make any difference. But if you're doing 3 to 5, 3 meals and 2 snacks of at least 20 grams of protein, you're going to trigger more muscle growth than you would otherwise. But as long as you're getting your minimum needs, you're still going to maintain decent muscle mass and be fairly lean. When it comes to consuming stuff around exercise, you want to get some protein in within, say, an hour-ish before training so that your body has those amino acids to use right away. Because if you take a supplement right after training, it takes some time to get into your system. So pre-protein is going to be in your system as you're training and as you finish up. And then as long as you eat a nice balanced meal within an hour or 2 hours is fine, after training, you're still going to maintain and develop decent muscle mass. Now, I'm not talking about all the intricacies of bodybuilding. I'm just talking to normal people people who are just trying to be fitter, trying to be stronger, trying to have a little bit more muscle, you can optimize once you've hit these other things, once you understand the importance of protein, once you understand that importance, once you understand how much you need, and you get good at that, and then understand where you're getting your source or where you're sourcing it from, the last step is when. And you will have more muscle mass and generally be leaner if you have more protein feedings across the day as opposed to fewer. If you're only eating 1 or 2 meals a day, you're going to do fine as long as you stay within your calories and keep your protein up. But it's usually much harder to get 150 to 200 grams of protein in 1 or 2 meals. That's really hard. But if you break that up across the day, it's pretty easy and tends to lead to better energy levels across the day. More stable blood sugar, less cravings. And that's the real secret, is when you get your protein right, a lot of your cravings go away because your protein sources tend to be very nutrient dense, and protein helps regulate your hunger signals. So if you're feeling hungry all the time, feeling like you just can't eat enough, but you're still overweight or trying to lose some weight, focus on the protein and then see how you feel. Do that for a few weeks and you'll find that you're just not hungry anymore because you're actually nourished and your blood sugar is more regulated. So make sure you understand why you need your protein. Make sure you understand how much you need. 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilo is fine, or 3 or 4 palm-sized portions of dense protein sources each day. And then get those sources that you like, whether it's meat, whether it's dairy. Eggs are okay too. They're a little bit higher in fat, so it's a little bit, the ratio is a little bit funny, but they're very good for you. But figure out what you like best and just pack your fridge with that. Snack on that stuff. And then once you've dialed all that in, you're doing fine. But if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, start looking at trying to increase the amount of protein serves you have across the day as opposed to less but bigger serves. And that will help maintain muscle mass, build more muscle mass, and stay a little bit leaner. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, like we can really go into this. I do a 3-hour talk on eating habits, my Eat Like an Adult talk. This is something we can go into a lot of detail on, but we're already at 22 minutes. So that's as far as I want to go today. But if you have questions, just reach out. I do have a highlight on my Instagram at Coach Josh Wood that goes through all of this in a lot of detail too. So feel free to check that out. Hit me up with questions. And then please like, rate, review. Let me know what you think. And until next time, enjoy your week.